Hello and welcome to Middlesex Moments, coming to you from Middlesex Community College. I'm Steve Minkler, the college CEO, and recently we all turned the page on the calendar. We're now in the year 2021, which has already proven to be a very eventful year with lots of things to talk about, whether you work at a college or whether you are just an interested citizen or resident. In many ways, Middlesex Community College does try to work with the community that surrounds us. Our students come from the community, and we try to give back through work that we do through something called our Center for Civic Engagement. And today we're going to talk about the Center for Civic Engagement briefly, but also talk about another community outreach program we have, which is called the Middlesex Community College Book Club. And with me are two guests from our English department, Ashley Rathel and Adam Floridia. But I want to start with Ashley, who in her role as an English professor also coordinates the Center for Civic Engagement. And how are you doing today, Ashley?
I'm good, Steve. I'm happy to be here. I run the Center for Civic Engagement, and one of the cool things that some kind of behind the scenes things that have been happening are we have teamed up with Empower You, the Empower You Club, which has traditionally been human services students. And we're trying to expand that into more of a community outreach club. I think the name is going to stay Empower You, but that's something that we'll be working on this semester. And one of the goals of Empower You is community outreach anyway, but it's also self-care. So we're going to have a lot of events happening throughout the semester that will connect with the community, but then we'll also be talking a lot about ways that we can reflect on ourselves and our own well-being, which I think, maybe 2021 is going to be all about self-reflection and healing and moving on in a different way in our society. So one of the first things that you're going to be hearing about, especially if you're a Middlesex faculty or student or staff member, is an initiative in February, which is Heart Health Month. We're going to have some speakers coming to talk to the group about heart health. And we're also going to have a walking challenge where you'll be able to sign up and kind of challenge yourself to walk so much in February, which of course we know is a cold month. So it's good motivation. But we're also going to do it as a fundraiser. So we're going to give the money to the local chapter of the American Heart Association. So students will be able to participate in that, just as a challenge, but we're also going to have the added if you want to donate money to this cause. So it'll be accessible to anybody who wants to do that. And it will give you, some motivation to get outside during February too, especially we're still in the pandemic, where one of the only things you can kind of do right now safely is be outside. So that's definitely on our radar. And then of course the Center for Civic Engagement. I don't have the specifics yet for what's going to be going on in terms of volunteering, because I'm thinking like April is going to be the best month for that, so that we can again be outside safely with our COVID-19 regulations. So, just keep an ear out for different things that will be happening and different emails you might get from the center, because we have a lot of exciting stuff coming up.
Yeah, and that's on the heels of our second day of service, which you helped to put together, and you were the visionary force behind doing 2 years in a row. And we were able to reach out to several community agencies and give them some help.
Yeah, we had a great fall day of service, especially since we had one snow day. So we essentially that big snow day was on the one day that we had planned to be outside. So we were able to split them up though and still get everything done. We volunteered with Gilead, Shepherd Home in Middletown, which is for veterans, Buttonwood Tree, and Salvation Army, and then we did a big craft drive for Adelbrook.
So it sounds like the Center for Civic Engagement has some interesting activities that help you kind of recenter yourself as an individual, particularly in the time of this pandemic, and all the things that are happening in our society, but also as ways of giving back and maybe even learning a little bit more about the important needs of our community. I'm Steve Minkler, the college CEO, together with my two guests, Ashley Rathel and Adam Floridia, who are both professors of English here at Middlesex Community College. Ashley is also the coordinator of Civic Engagement, which is a center that we have on our campus. And both of them are here to talk to us now about the Middlesex Community College Book Club. And Adam, you are sort of the unofficial historian of the book club. And maybe for those who haven't heard of our book club, how did the book club originally get started at the college?
Actually, it started well before me, so I guess historian is right, since I am definitely not the originator. At least since I started at the college back in 2007, one of our librarians, Ann Palick, now retired, ran a book club and did a great job really trying to get the community involved, faculty, staff, students, obviously, to just promote a culture of reading at the college and reading for fun. Because I even thinking back to my days as a college student, I didn't get to read as much as I liked for fun. We do a lot of reading, but it's not always stuff we choose. And I know for some students that kind of turns them off to reading altogether if they don't find stuff they like. So hopefully we've continued the tradition of trying to pick books that are engaging and interesting and things that might not, actually some of them could absolutely be assigned in a classroom. That doesn't automatically mean they're boring just because they're assigned in a classroom. Just means they lend themselves to wonderful discussion, whether it's social issues or just real world events that come up. So after Anne retired, I decided to keep the book club going and rejuvenated it, I guess. And as I was looking through old flyers, the advertisements I make for the book club, I made the one for this semester, and I looked back and realized that we will be on our 25th book. We'll complete our 25th book this April. During our final meeting, it will have been our 25th book, which is great. And then Anne, I don't know how many she did before that. So historically, the book club has covered a lot more books, but since I've kind of restarted it up, we'll hit 25, which is a nice number.
As always, you guys select 3 books every semester, and these aren't necessarily class assignments, but these are books that employees, members of the community, anybody who wants to have a good read can join us for. And I'm really excited because these 3 books really show a diversity of authors, a diversity of topics. 2 of them are, up-and-coming new authors, and the third one maybe not so new. We'll take them in order. We have our first book club reading in the month of February, and we'll talk about days and times in a minute, is called The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. And this seemed to be a really interesting selection. And Adam, what drew you to selecting this book for this semester's book club?
So it's always a joint decision between Ashley and I. I think the way it's worked out in the past has been I usually find a book that I really want to do, and she says, yeah, sure. And then she recommends 1 or 2 that maybe I haven't read, and I say, yeah, sure, that sounds good. This is one that I read and started talking to her about, and she's like, yes, I read that. And I was like, as I was reading, I just kept thinking this has to be a book club book. And she said, yes, me too. And then I think we went on to have about an hour and a half conversation about the book. So we know this book lends itself to a good discussion, at least between the 2 of us. So hopefully other people will like to get involved. The way I discovered the book actually was through a Book of the Month club that I'm in. My mother-in-law got it for me for Christmas, and it's been great because it's made me expand my reading horizons, much in the same way Ashley's also sort of made me expand my reading horizons. As I did look back through the previous books we read, I noticed that the first 3 to 6 books, which is, semester or 2, were mostly Kurt Vonnegut, David Foster Wallace. So the stuff that's on my shelves, which is why I decided it was a great choice to get my wonderful friend and colleague Ashley involved so that she could pick other stuff and help broaden the horizon. So this book I found in the Book of the Month Club. It was actually the winner of the 2020 Book of the Year. It was the number 1 choice for that particular club, and I can see why. So we're looking forward to discussing that with other people and discussing it again with us.
Well, the author, Britt Bennett, is from California. She herself is African American, and I think she explores issues of race and identity. And one of the things I read from her, she says that the question at the center of this book really is what makes me, me, and what makes you, you. And I have not yet read the book, but from what I understand and reading sort of the summary of it is we have 2 twins who one decides to live her life as a black person, and the other what we might call passing as white, and really kind of exploring that identity. So I think that this is something that is really timely in things that are happening in our society, but also what's happening at our college at the moment, trying to make sure that we are hearing the voices of our students.
Yeah, absolutely. This book is all about identity, and it's about identity. I mean, the summary on the back talks about, the race and issue. And I mean, as someone who didn't grow up during this time where passing was something that, we heard of, it's really fascinating to see what these 2 twins do. But there are other issues of identity also. A transgender character. It's all about identity. And it's really great. It goes through different time periods. It goes back and forth. I mean, Adam and I had a really long conversation, I think when he was on vacation, about this book. I had listened to the audio.
I think I might have called you from the beach.
Called you from the beach, and you were reading it, and I was like, I'm listening to it right now. So I actually listened to the audiobook, and I'm trying to decide if I want to listen to the audiobook again or if I want to read it in print. That's my big conundrum that I haven't decided yet.
Yeah, and I think we've had this debate several times on Middlesex Moments, talking about reading versus listening to books. But so when is our first book club reading and get together?
The book club will be the 3rd Wednesday of the month, starting in February. So that will put the first one on Wednesday, February 17th. We will always meet at 12:30, virtually again this semester. Worked out well last semester. So you can join us right here on Microsoft Teams. But February 17th is when we'll be discussing The Vanishing Half.
Awesome. For more information about the book club, is there a webpage or is there some sort of other social media type of site that people can go to learn more about the book selections and how to find us?
Yes, I'm glad you asked. We actually have a webpage on goodreads.com, one of my only social media site that I use actually for keeping track of books that you've read, books you want to read, writing little reviews, finding out what other people are reading. It's a great way to discover some books that you might otherwise not. And we have an MXCC page there that I keep updated with the books we're reading, the books we've read, upcoming meeting times. So if anyone wants to check that out, goodreads.com and look for the MXCC group. MXCC Reads is the name.
Okay, so our second book selection, which would be for the month of March, is a not-so-new author, Agatha Christie, The Murder at the Vicarage. And I know, Adam, we've talked about this book before. This is just sort of your good old-fashioned mystery novel, isn't it?
I think so. Haven't read it. So it's a mystery to me. I've actually never read any Agatha Christie, but a year ago in spring, it was going to be our March murder mystery book. And if you remember, March of 2020 is when things started to go sour. So we didn't end up having that meeting. We picked, I think, the murder mystery, particularly because one of our regular book club attendees, Paul Carmichael, request mysteries. He said that's the kind of book he likes. So we decided to pick one that we hoped someone else would enjoy too. And I've got to say, I'm actually really looking forward to it because I've just like discovering, kind of branching out from my comfort zone in reading. I've recently been reading a few mysteries, and I have a couple more to talk to you about for the fall book club already. The other thing I'll mention quickly about this one is when I remember when I sent out last spring's flyer of the books we were going to read, I got more emails from people excited to potentially read this than I think anything else. A lot of people were huge Agatha Christie fans or looking forward to a mystery. So I'm hoping that excitement, enthusiasm is still alive and people join us for the March read.
I don't think I knew that many people were excited about Agatha Christie. I really love mysteries as well. So I love plot-driven stories, and that's what I read in my spare time. I know it's not what
that's what I'm getting into. I can't.
But that's my brain candy. My brain candy is reading things that are like, oh, I just got to know what happens. I need to know what happens at the end of this book. And I'm excited about that too. And I don't think I've read any Agatha Christie before. So that's a huge gap in our knowledge of books.
Well, and this is also the first novel in which her character, Miss Marple, appears. I mean, and she then later appeared in many other Agatha Christie works after that, right?
I wasn't familiar with many of her works, but yeah, I guess that's one of her key characters who takes the reins from Perrot, Detective Perrot.
Yeah.
I'm murdering it, but I've seen at least a movie, I think, and it had him. I'm like, oh, okay, that's her key character. And then this is when she introduces a female protagonist detective.
Which was maybe ahead of its time in the year 1930, if you think about it, when this book was released, I suppose. But I like, Ashley, your phrase, brain candy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, something
My
that
husband always says to me, do people at work know what you read at home? Because I don't think you'd be allowed to be in the English department. And I was like, it's brain candy. It's what I do for leisure. You know, I get to read lots of literature for work. I get to teach literature. I live and breathe good literature. And in my downtime, I don't watch a lot of TV. I read these very quick stories. There's a lot of fantasy. I love high fantasy. There's a lot of young adult fiction, but I love like a fast read that's fun and interesting. I found this new feature through Alexa, right? Amazon's Alexa. She will read your Kindle book out loud to you. Now, it's a robot. She is pretty good for a robot. I'm not going to lie. Like, I feel a little bad because I think it takes away from people buying the audiobook, right? With like the actual, the actor who's doing it. But I mean, if I want to do my dishes and still read my book, I can have my Alexa read it out loud to me, which I'm loving right now.
All right.
I've also gone entirely to ebooks. I don't think I can go back to a regular book now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know you're sad about it, but there's no difference, Adam. Like, it's the same words. I think I'm just of this generation. I love it.
I know. I do have a few years on you, yeah.
Oh, well.
I've got 100 books in my Kindle. I don't have space for that in my house, 100. It's crazy.
It does make it harder to travel because when I travel abroad, I always bring specific books for photo ops. So books by an Irish author if I'm going to Ireland or Peruvian if I'm going to Peru, etc. And I have to plan very carefully because I can only bring so many books. Where if
Mm-hmm.
I had a Kindle, I guess, but it wouldn't take the same pictures.
That's true.
Right.
Book number 2 of the book club is Agatha Christie's Murder at the Vicarage. And Ashley, when is the date and time for that book club?
You can find us on Microsoft Teams on Wednesday, March 24th at 12:30.
Welcome back to Middlesex Moments, coming to you from Middlesex Community College. I'm Steve Minkler, the college CEO, with my guests Ashley Rathel and Adam Floridia, who are both professors of English here at the college, and they are both in charge of the Middlesex Community College Book Club, and we've been talking about the book selections for this semester. Before the break, though, we got into a little interesting debate about whether to read a physical book versus an ebook on whatever sort of device you might have. And Ashley very much is on the side of ebooks. And you have some specific reasons why, Ashley?
So I do. I have so many reasons why. But, the first one is that you can keep as many books, as you want there. I also have a Kindle Unlimited subscription through Amazon. So I can get free books through Kindle Unlimited, which is really nice. And my favorite feature is that when I don't know what a word means, I can just press my finger on the word and the definition pops up. And I teach my students all the time about looking up words you don't know. But how many of us sit and read something and say, oh, I don't know this word. I'll go back and look it up. And then you finish it, the article or the book or whatever, and you never go back and look it up unless it's like something really like critical that you just have to find out. My vocabulary is expanding. I already have a pretty good vocabulary, but it's expanding. And I love that. I love the ease of that. So the one thing that I don't like, and Steve, we talked about this already once. You flipped your e-reader, right? So that it's black and white. And I cannot figure out how to do that on mine, which I kind of wish I could.
Okay, I'll help you figure that out. But yes, I do.
Okay.
I was reading a book on, actually, I use an iPad, and you're right. I have it instead of being a white background with black letters, reversed it. So it's a black background with white letters, and it's a lot easier on your eyes because you don't have this screen glowing at you the whole time.
That is one of my concerns is I read before bed and I know you're not supposed to look at screens for like an hour before you go to
Hmm.
sleep. And I definitely feel like my mind doesn't have the same relaxation as it would if I was reading a paper book before bed. I think there is a difference there.
Right. And sort of this mini point counterpoint, Adam, you are a devotee of physical paper books. And what draws you to the traditional way of reading a book on paper?
I like buying books. For me, they're decorative for my house. I like having my bookshelves. I like carrying around a book. I like feeling a book, as weird as that sounds. I really I really strongly dislike reading on screens, so that would be a big negative for me. Like, I get the ease, I get the portability, I get the massive library you can carry with you. I mean, it took me, I think, a good 10 years to get an iPhone or a smartphone after iPhones came out. So I'm reluctant to change, I guess, more of a Luddite. So I just like my traditional books.
So I think that's a debate I'm sure continue every time that we talk about book club and reading but I think the point is we're reading good stuff, aren't we? It doesn't matter which format we're using.
As long as you're reading, yeah.
Yes.
Well, and that's my whole argument is that it doesn't. So, and I am an audiobook person too. So, audiobook, ebook, actual book, we just want you to read and we want you to enjoy words and enjoy the story.
Absolutely. And I like audiobooks just because of my commute. So it's a way for me to pass time. And provided I'm not so focused on the book that I get lost on the way of wherever I'm going.
One last point. Actually, I'm sure you can do this with ebooks and stuff, but you can annotate, I'm sure, digitally and all that stuff.
Yeah, I've started doing ebooks for book club, which is, I don't do it for school books because we have textbooks or whatever, but I do it for our book club. It is nice because I go through and I highlight the passage, and then when we would sit around in a circle and I'm flipping through, right, to find the quote that I want to talk about, instead, now all of the quotes are on one screen. So I can find it, I can click on it, and then it will bring me to the page, and I can see, the whole page area that it came from. But honestly, I don't make notes, and I know you're a note person. This is all leisure reads for me for the most part. So I'm not sitting here annotating them, which I know you do when you leisure read as well. So I don't know how easy it is to take notes that then you go back and find.
Because I can say, I remember last time I taught a course on Kurt Vonnegut, one of the students had an ebook. So I remember sitting there and like we mentioned something like, oh yeah, isn't this a reference to something else earlier or something? And I'm like, yeah, I think I know where it is. And she's immediately, it's on page whatever, chapter whatever, is able to find it so fast. But even for me, that's part of the joy, especially now we mentioned mysteries earlier. Like I just finished a mystery and I see books almost like puzzles. So I'm taking my little notes and tracking things that I think might be clues. And I will take the time sometimes if I sit down to read, I read one line, I'm like, wait, I think this reminds me of something. I'll spend half an hour going back and looking through to try to make that connection. So it's this whole process, which slows things down, but it's, I don't know, part of the reading experience for me.
And I don't know if this is still true, but so when I was in grad school, I got my first e-reader mainly because the works I could get for free because they were, not copyrighted. And it was a way cheaper way to do grad school. But my pagination was different than everybody else in class. So the professor would say like, oh, it has such and such word on this page. And then you could search for the strange word that's on that page and get to the passage that they were at. But that was not, I'm not someone who's necessarily telling my students to get the e-version of our textbooks. I'm not there yet just because of that issue.
Well, let's kind of get ourselves back a little bit on track. This has been fascinating, but we are, a part of this is all about encouraging people to read. And one of the community events that the college has is our book club. And we've been talking about the 3 books that you guys have selected. We covered the first 2, The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, which will be featured on February 17th, which is a Wednesday at 12:30. And the second book is The Murder at the Vicarage by Agatha Christie, Wednesday, March 24th at 12:30. Both of them will be presented through Teams, which is this video conferencing type of system since we can't meet in person at this point.
Well, Steve, you mentioned 2 of the books, but we do have a third coming up, and I think you have a personal connection to that author. So maybe you could tell us a little more.
Well, sort of a semi-personal connection. This is one of those, 6 degrees of separation type of things. But yeah, our third book is called How We Fight for Our Lives by Saeed Jones. And I did meet Saeed about maybe a little more than a year ago. We say BC now, right? Before COVID. I met Saeed because my daughter was working with him. He was the co-host of a live stream video show called AM to DM, which was on BuzzFeed and Twitter. And my daughter works in media production, and she worked on the show. And so we went down to visit her on the show and we got to meet Saeed. He's a great guy, and he really is an up-and-coming author. This book happens to be a memoir about he grew up as a young black gay man from the South, and really all of the things that get wrapped into that in terms of growing up. He obviously is younger. This is his second book, but certainly being his memoir really examines, as we were talking about earlier, the whole notion of identity. Who is he, and who is he in the context of who other people thinks he is? I think this book combined with The Vanishing Half are 2 books where it's really that tension between who you think you are versus who you think society wants you to be. And actually, I think you really kind of took the lead in reading this book and getting ready for the book club. So I was wondering what kind of responses you had to Saeed's book.
Honestly, I actually haven't read it yet. We often will get a recommendation for something and then not read it so that it's fresh for us when we read it for book club, that we haven't, already kind of dissected all the different things about it. But I loved the summary that is on the back of the book. I thought it was really fascinating. It definitely aligns with a lot of the things that we're trying to think about and talk about on campus, which I think is really important to incorporate into book club. The work with the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council. So I think we had that in mind when we were picking our list. We already had 2 fiction books, that we were reading this semester. So it's nice to have a memoir and a nonfiction. So I think that I was coming from that angle as well. So I'm really excited to read it. I really like the theme of identity. It's something that we're always struggling with. And our students, who are often of this, 18 to 26 year range, they are finding their identity, right? Like all of these stories that are coming of age, they're living it. And it's really fascinating to get to talk to students who are going through that process about a book like this, because they bring an angle that, we start to be removed from as we get older. So I'm really excited to read it.
I think it goes well with, as you said, with what we're doing with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it also honors, one of our larger student clubs, which is SPEAK, Students Promoting Equality, Acceptance, and Knowledge, which is our gay straight support and mentoring student organization. So there's a lot of cool things kind of happening with this book being selected at this time. Yeah, but this whole notion of identity, like you said, are students who come at it and who are still kind of trying to discover themselves at a time in our society and in our culture where we're seeing, major divisions based on race, ethnicity, political party, which part of the country you live in, even. It's a very anxious time for lots of us.
I think that's one of those universal and timeless themes too, just the idea of identity. So while both of The Vanishing Half and Saeed's book have the racial aspect, I reading The Vanishing Half made me look at myself. I'm a 39-year-old white man, but I could still relate to the themes and kind of, I think everyone is always going through and reshaping their identity and wondering who they are and finding themselves. So whether you're 18 to 26 or almost 40 or almost 60 or almost 80, I think that's one of those parts of our life experience that everyone continues to go through.
Yeah, I'm 56 years old, the CEO of a college, and I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up.
That's so good to hear.
I'll let you know when I get there, if I get there. Okay, well, once again, why don't we roll through our 3 books? This is the Middlesex Community College Book Club, and you can join us on Teams, and you can learn more about that by going to mxcc.edu/book club. Our first book coming up in the month of February, Adam, is
The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett on Wednesday, February 17th at 12:30.
And book number 2 in the month of March, Ashley.
It's going to be Wednesday, March 24th at 12:30, The Murder at the Vicarage by Agatha Christie.
And book number 3 is Wednesday, April 21st, How We Fight for Our Lives by Saeed Jones. And so I want to thank my guests, Ashley Rathel and Adam Floridia, for joining me today. Thanks, guys. And I'd like to thank you, our listeners and viewers, for joining us for another edition of Middlesex Moments. As always, please visit us in person and remember to wear your face mask if you do. Our main campus is located at 100 Training Hill Road in Middletown, or you can see us at our Meriden Center located at Platt High School, where we offer afternoon and evening classes 4 days a week. And as always, you can visit us 24/7 online at mxcc.edu. For everyone at Middlesex Community College, I'm Steve Minkler. Please be safe and be well.